All right. Hello, Musa. I want to introduce you to this office. It's MDS 306. It's an area for math people. I share my office with Alan Bartlett. He's not here today, but usually there are two people here. Well, great camera skills.
Thank you.
I always wanted to learn how to use the camera and how to interview people. So now you're doing that. So here are my math books. I have a calendar with a Zen saying, and I really like this Zen calendar. For example, it said here, if enlightenment is important, practice is also important. When we understand this point, within each step we have enlightenment. Step by step we will continue endless practice, the bliss of the Dharma world. And I think it's really applicable to mathematics. If mathematics is important, practice is also important. And if we understand this point with each step, we learn mathematics.
Nice.
And there are these people here, you see, endless learning on every step. This is the Zen calendar. When you feel that you are somebody, you have to practice the Zen harder, right? In other words, don't have pride. If you feel that you're somebody, then you're mistaken. You're nothing. And you have to practice harder, right? No pride. Anyway, I know we're going to talk about today some overcoming obstacles, so would you like to ask some questions?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And before we start, I want to thank you so much for making time in your schedule to meet with me. I'm excited to hear your story and how you got to be where you are today. But I want to tell you a little bit about myself so that you know where I'm coming from. The things I am most interested in is sports, technology, and my family and friends. But I'm not sure how to connect those to what I want to do in my life. For me, right now in my life, the biggest question I'm trying to answer is how will I utilize the resources I have so that I can attain success. I'm hoping that you have some wisdom and experience that I can apply to my life.
I hope so.
And so to begin, where were you when you were my age?
Okay, how old are you?
I'm 19.
19, wow, wonderful. Wow, where I was when I was 19. So I graduated from math and physics school. It was 79, and I went to the Moscow State University to study mathematics. So, in 79, and I was born in 62, right? So, it means that at 19 I was a student at Moscow State University, right? I graduated early, in 84, I already graduated, and in 83 I already started teaching at, it was University for Engineers of Aviation, right? And I was teaching special mathematics courses, discrete math, logic, so math for computer science. Right? So at 19 I was studying math, and like you said, you like sports, I also like sports. I always try to pass all my exams early and spend lots of time skiing in the mountains.
Nice.
I also play tennis, and I like to play piano, classical piano, many hours. So I also pursue music. So I also pursue music's career in the first place, but my mother said you can't make money being an artist, so you have to learn something solid so you can have a job. so I did, right?
Yeah, that's what every parent says.
Yeah. So your parents, I'm sure, giving you very good advice, because you mentioned that family is very important to you, and I think it's very good foundation. You have very solid foundation and good values which come from your family, and it will help you in your life tremendously. You're very organized. I know you from other classes, and you're very humble. It also helps you a lot.
Thank you.
It probably comes from your training, from your religious beliefs that you shared with me, and from your family values. So it will help you a lot. You work hard, being humble, work hard, have strong values in your life is very important. And I pretty much was in the same place where you are. I liked sports, I liked family. We live with not only parents but great-grandparents. And even now, many years later, my mother still lives with me and I take care of her. So we take care of each other. So strong family values also helped. And study mathematics very, very hard. And you study hard too.
Okay.
And it will help you.
And another question I had was, did you ever get like negative noise or anything? Are you familiar with what people call the noise? The noise is like things people just like say, either good feedback or bad feedback of whatever you do in life. And
even if you don't invite the opinion?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, what was it like to hear negative feedback or positive?
Well, in different stages of life it was different, right? If you ask me how it was when I was 19, right? It was really important for me from whom the feedback is coming. If the feedback was coming from my grandfather, for example, who was very critical and had very high standards in studies and mathematics. When I was 3 years old, I had to memorize multiplication table. First by 2, by 3, etc., right? So I learned multiplication table when I was like 3 years old, and I learned to count. I went to school at 5, and I already could do all math and algebra at that time because they trained me at home. So when you have high expectation and you have to learn to read very early, then you grew up with high expectations, right? Everybody in my family has PhDs. My mother made like 4 PhDs in physics and chemistry. Again, it's very high expectations. Everybody expects the same from you very early ages. So you kind of get used to negative feedback and the feedback in general, like on daily basis. But when you hear it from your teacher, let's say at school, I had a very teacher who critiqued you very strongly, and I was hurting a lot, right? So I was coming home and I was crying, and I asked my mother to take me from this math and physics school, which was extremely hard. People were having like nervous breakdowns at this school. That's how hard it was. Pretty much everybody had a private tutor, and my mother hired me a private tutor professor from university, and I'm in a middle school, right, doing algebra. So the teacher was basically sitting next to me and we were doing algebra problem. But most important, he started with nurturing my love to mathematics, right? When you love your subject, if you have a positive attitude, then even a negative feedback you can turn into positive. It's actually nice when somebody tells you something critical. If everybody gonna tell you how wonderful you are, you're never gonna learn anything from that, right? It's really important to know the contrast. Good and bad, white and black, right? If we don't see the contrast between white and black, then it's hard to see the difference, right? So it's important to know the contrast in life in general. Then you have some kind of a direction where to go. And when I was critiqued very harshly, and sometimes using hard words, which not appropriate in American school, right? It hurts, and it was very hard. I came home crying, but depending how you look at that, some people get discouraged, and some people get even more encouraged, so they never hear this feedback again. So I am glad that I had strong support and grounding at home. I had confidence, and there was nothing wrong with me. You have to feel the way you feel at every single moment. You have the right to feel the way you feel in every single moment. Acknowledge that you're hurting. Get to the bottom of that. What is actually hurting? Is it your ego that getting hurt? Or maybe it's a starting point to grow up and learn and get better, to improve, right? They say you don't have to be sick to get better, right? You don't have to be sick to improve. So I always try to turn it into positive, and even if somebody critiques me, I always think there is probably something into this criticism that I can take on and learn from it, right? Always. Even if it's undeserved, right? Maybe it's even undeserved, but you still can learn from that, right? And maybe you learn from that, don't critique others like that, don't hurt other people if it's unnecessary, right? But sometimes you tell other people, like, they're smoking in the park, right? And you pass by and they're smoking. But you can approach them nicely and say, I'm sorry to interrupt your day, but I want to share with you, let's say, personal experience or something, right? Which maybe help to improve, right? And if you approach people nicely and tell them, you know, you're really hurting your health, you can have some serious side effects, maybe you know people who haven't died from that, then they may look differently and quit smoking, or at least put the seed there to start thinking about it, right? But going back to my childhood, so I started growing confidence in math early, and by the end of the school I was one of the best students. And being a woman in a math and physics school in Russia is very, very hard, right? You're surrounded only by boys, and everybody is very smart, and everybody's parents have PhDs and famous scientists. Even though my mother also had a PhD and was a famous scientist, it was comforting and reassuring that I can be like this one day. But still, it's very, very hard to compete in this world, right? The teacher was also a man, and for the women it's in general harder, right? Even the salaries are lower for women than for men when you start your work, right? Then I was teaching mathematics, and again in a very man department. And in general, mathematics predominantly is a man world. Right? Not so many famous mathematicians are women, so you have to kind of think about this all the time and be even better, be even stronger. Women tend to be more perfectionists. Even students, when they get their grades, guys may be happy with 80, but girls want 95 and 100, you know, perfectionists. Everything should be perfect. So I also have this weakness, and everything has to be perfect. Sometimes you have to just stop and do it well, and maybe not look for being perfect, you know. Good is sometimes good enough, right? Then perception of being heard changes with age, because you're going through life, right? You start working. I moved from country to country. I worked in Russia and France and Germany and the United States, right? And you go through different countries, different cultural experiences. Probably not going to go, otherwise it's going to take 5 hours interview, you know, for 5 different countries, speak different languages. Just to learn the language is a challenge. Every time you move to a different country, you have to learn different language, and you have to teach mathematics in this language, right? So in the United States, women treated more equally with men than other countries. And in this way, it's kind of easier, right? Even though mathematics and STEM field is still, we have less women, and that's why women in STEM I'm very passionate about it, and I try to help girls in math and science in early stages. But even now, when I have negative criticism, we all can learn from that, right? The more you learn, the older you get, it's not a big deal anymore, right? It's not a big deal. At some point you can laugh at it and still learn from it, but you start welcoming criticism, because otherwise you don't know the difference, otherwise you don't learn, you don't grow, right? Because we all get very comfortable being in the groove, and being in the groove all the time, acting the same way and responding in the same way, this is kind of a pattern, and right? So when I feel that something is pushing me out of my groove, out of the comfort zone, I welcome that now. And I said, well, maybe it's an opportunity to grow and to learn something, right? So every time I find a hard math problem, I'm like, oh, this is a great opportunity to solve the problem and learn something new, right? You are assigned to teach the class you never taught before. I'm like, wow, this is going to be lots of work, right? But then I think, wow, this is a great opportunity to grow and to learn new problems. And every time you have connections with the previous classes you were teaching, and you teach other classes better because of this new class, right? Like this math for computer science, discrete math, right? You teach math for computer science people, you learn computer science because you have to, right? I collaborate with computer science instructors, Institute of Technology. As a result, I teach pre-calculus differently. When we talk about logs, logarithm and exponents, right? You start showing students examples with applications with log base 2 or log base 10, how many digits in a number, earlier. Yeah? So I think I improved teaching my earlier classes because of the higher level course, right? And you improve yourself. And people come and observe your classes and you get different feedback, right? And every time when there are suggestions, I always try to incorporate them and say thank you to people who, because not everybody is going to give you negative feedback, right? You have to welcome it and make people comfortable to also give you negative feedback and learn from that. Like I tell my husband, please, every time I say something wrong, and with a different stress, or I pronounce it wrong, please correct me, because I'm a foreigner, right? So my pronunciation, when you come here after age of 13, it's hard to get rid of your accent, right? So every time I tell my students, please correct my English. If you can help me, I will write better, I will improve my pronunciation, and two-way street. You always learn from people, right? So, back to the question, like, did I get negative feedback? Tons of it, every day, right? Sometimes it's harsh. Do you learn from it? Oh yeah, absolutely. If you change your attitude toward negative feedback, you always can make lemonade out of lemons, right? You always can, from the minus, strike it with plus, and minus become plus, and it's something positive. It's just all how you look at the attitude.
Okay, and did you have any obstacles on your road to success, and how did you overcome these obstacles?
The question is on the road to success. Success is relevant, right? That's how you look at that. Who knows what success is, right? Like today, having this opportunity to talk to you, maybe it's success, right? Some people think about success, people having good job, positions, right, etc., etc. That's how you evaluate. Some people think spiritual growth is a success, right? People have strong beliefs, people having strong values, they have children, great families. So it's depending how you define it, right? But about obstacles, right? If we're going to remove the word success from the sentence, just say, did you have obstacles? Everybody have obstacles every day, right? Again, that's how you look at things. For somebody, little rock on the road can be a big obstacle. That's again how you look at that. And people can have an anxiety just looking at this rock and thinking, oh my God, how am I going to overcome that, right? But then you can just jump over it and say, that wasn't a big deal, right? Perspective is a big thing, right, in general. Everything in the content, right? Obstacles, huge obstacles. Since we're talking about education and career, right, teaching mathematics, lots of obstacles. Like I described to you, I had a terrible math teacher. I mean, he was a good teacher, but he was very disrespectful, very harsh, and using appropriate words. And here person like this would be fired, right? But I had students from China, they had a similar experience, right? It's something cultural. And it was a huge obstacle, right? It was very hard not to give up. Every day go and face it and get even better and better and better until you're very comfortable and you're confident and you know that you do things right and you get the right answer and you deserve appropriate score and appropriate recognition and having a good grade in the classroom, right? Just going through the math department, Moscow State University, extremely demanding. The best mathematician went through the school. It's a very challenging school, covering enormous amount of hours of classes. And the library opens at 7 a.m. and we don't have enough books for everybody, so you have to be at 7 a.m. and you get copies of lectures from this professor. Then you can go and have breakfast, right, somewhere in the same university, and then you come back and study whole day, right? Just not having enough books is already an obstacle, right? Being in the library every day and study hard. I was very lucky, I had a very good team of my students. Working in group is important. It's not only, first you're more dependent and then you become more independent, and then you realize that everything in the nature and life is interdependent. And when you build this interdependency with your friends and your team workers and your professors and teachers, counselors, you become interdependent and you grow. You become on the next level. That's also very, very important. And when you start working in different countries, language is always the barrier, right? So you come to the new country, you have to learn new language, new culture, new traditions. People may behave differently, different cultural norms, right? That's also a big obstacle. So you have to learn that, learn new language, and you need to learn to communicate in a new language, to teach mathematics in a new language, new books. There are lots of obstacles, but like I said earlier, you take it as challenges, not obstacles. You take it like a challenge, and you grow out of that. And you only get better and happier.
And you kind of answered success, the question, a little bit. And I wanted to ask you, what does success mean to you?
Oh, very good question, right? Well, then older you get, then the meaning of success changes. And from my personal experience, when I look at people who leave lots of students or people who appreciate kindness, right? If you learn to be respectful and kind to other people, right? And they recognize it in you, right? Because people feel connected to you when you're open with them, when you're honest, right? So I would say that for me, it's important that I feel that I'm honest and everything comes from love. People feel it too, right? Because when you do something in life, and most of the people do, when we act, it's from love or fear, right? Even on the level of bacteria or molecular bacteria, right? They when you approach something, you can resist food, or you can come and swallow this food, right? On this simple, elementary, physical level, like animals, right? But humans operate on a different level. It's not only animal, but also on a spiritual level, right? But it comes with spiritual growth, lots of studies, meditation, right? For some people, religion, culture, right? Lots of thinking on deep level about purpose of life, of human beings on the planet in general, right? So you learn to be humble, like I started from the beginning, and it's very important in life. And everything you do in life comes from love, right? You wake up in the morning and you think, oh, I have my wonderful students, they deserve love and they deserve the best instructions and learn the math the best possible way. So what I can do today to provide these excellent instructions, right? Comes from love. And it's kind of move you through the day, right? Even if you have big challenges, like we have meetings, I have to assess students' learning on the level of the major, for example, right? We go through lots of work, lots of files, lots of reading. You only can do it if you have lots of love for your profession, right? Because it's a very hard work, right? So people are successful when they're happy with what they do. And they're happy with what they do if they love what they do. They love the subject, they love people, and they want other people grow. Not only mathematically, but also as human beings, grow spiritually, right? Be a very compassionate human being. And what worries me in the world right now, we watch TV, right, and what's going on in the news, right, with all these wars. Are we losing a little bit this feeling of being compassionate, right? Because I would like them to be loving human being and be very compassionate to their neighbors and friends, right? Not only to friends sitting next to you in the classroom, but human being on the other side of the planet, right? You've never seen them before. Doesn't matter what color they are, what kind of a level of economical growth their country is, but you have to be compassionate to every human being on the planet. And if people achieve that, they're successful. And they respect others the way they respect themselves, you know? Yeah.
After everything we talked about, is there one piece of advice that you'd give me about what it takes to define my own road of success?
Very deep questions you're asking today. Very deep questions. One piece of advice to define your own success? I think that you're kind of exceptional in this way. You know lots of answers on these questions, but because we kind of talked before, right? You have very strong family values and a sense of purpose in your life, right? In your studies and your fasting right now and everything you do for your family, right? So you already know lots of answers there, right? Piece of advice, be very happy and positive in everything you do. I don't even know if it's advice, it's just, maybe it is advice, right? Don't doubt yourself, right? Create the momentum. If you feel, because you have this intuition, right? And intuition is also something really important. And if you are on the right path for yourself, if you do the right thing, you're asking yourself, am I doing it from love again, right? And then it only gives you momentum. It only helps you, right? Then you're a religious man, right? Religion, you are, right? Religion is also something very grounding and propelling you. Because your troubles, you asking your divine intervention, right? For advice. And usually when you ask, you're always giving, right? You ask the question, you get the answer. You ask for help, you get help. So when you have this very strong belief and very strong values, you're already on the right pathway, right? But you're also very hardworking. Like I know you study very hard for calculus, and if you did something wrong, you always go back and you practice again, like we did with inequalities, and suddenly it's become easy. So you build your confidence, right? So you don't give up, never, right? You can give up. Be very, very stubborn. Like, I never give up until I solve the problem. I even try to solve the problems which are unsolvable. And then I keep thinking, and it drives me crazy. I can't sleep sometimes for 3 days, right? But something great comes out of that, great discussions, right? Don't give up. And have a great sense of humor. Because you have to laugh at yourself, right? Don't take yourself seriously. Right?
Mhm.
We're all children. Even the older you get, you are still a child at heart. So don't take yourself seriously. Laugh at yourself. I laugh at myself all the time. You know, when students laugh at me, I laugh with them together, right? My husband laughs at me. I laugh at myself too. It's not a big deal, right? Nothing is still a big deal. It's never late, right? Good questions. I'll think about them. How about that, right? Because it's kind of unexpected. So I'll think about that, and if I'll come up with something better.
And I think we're at the end of the interview.
All right.
Thanks
so
for letting me
you're welcome.
have the opportunity to interview.
Thank you. It's fun. Always have fun in life.
Yep. And